Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're doing well so far today. It is Tuesday. We're going to do a quick Rashi from the third Aliyah. Today's Aliyah, which I think will be an interesting one. We spoke yesterday about how our Aliyah was about the Kapores. We talked about the covering over the Aron. The previous day, the previous Aliyah before that was the Aliyah about the Aron itself, the construction of the three boxes and the covering, etc. Then yesterday's Aliyah was about the Kapores with the Kruvim, the Knafayim coming over them. We talked about Hashem's voice coming from above the Kapores and what that meant. Today's Aliyah moves on to talk about the construction of the next vessel, which is the construction of the menorah. The first pasuk is V'asisa menoras zahav tahor. You make a menorah of pure gold. Miksha te'ase ha-menorah. You should make the menorah miksha. So Rashi explains here what miksha is. Miksha is shelo ya'asena chulios. V'lo ya'aseh kaneha v'esneroseh evarim evarim v'achar kach yad bikem. You're not allowed to make it out of pieces. Chulios is like a connector menorah. One piece connects the other. V'lo ya'aseh kaneha v'esneroseh evarim evarim. You shouldn't make the kanim, the sticks, the actual branches of the menorah, and the cups that hold the oil, you shouldn't make them evarim, like different limbs, separated, and yadikim, and then all of a sudden glue them together or stick them together. Kederach tzorfim shikorim shulder, like the way the metal workers who are called solderers put them together. You can't take one piece and the other and solder it together and make one menorah. Elakula ba mechaticha achas. You have to make it miksha, one, like from the word kasheh, hard, miksha, one form, one clump. Kula ba mechaticha achas, all one piece of gold. Umakish bekurnus vechotech bekliha umnos umafrida kanem elach ve'elach. You take certain chisel vessels, you take other vessels of metal workers, you take off until the kanim start to appear, and then you continue making the designs and making the cups, and all of it has to be chiseled out of one solid piece of gold. There's another oddity of the pasuk, not only miksha, trying to explain what that means, but te'aseh ha-menorah. Te'aseh ha-menorah is in the passive form. The menorah shall be made. Right? A miksha, one form, the menorah shall be made. It should have said miksha ta'aseh, not te'aseh, but ta'aseh. You shall make the menorah a miksha, but it doesn't. It says miksha te'aseh. It should be made. So what's the passive form doing over here? So Rashi explains te'aseh ha-menorah. Lefi shehaya Moshe miskashe ba. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu hashlech hakikar la'ur v'hinaseh me'eleha. L'kach lo nichtav ta'aseh. It doesn't say you should make it. It should say it should be made. Why? Because Moshe was miskasheba. He didn't know how he was supposed to make this menorah, how it was supposed to come out. So Kadosh Baruch Hu says, no problem. Take the one big clump of gold, the whole kikar, and put it in the ore, put it in the furnace, put it in the fire. It'll be made on its own. It'll come out fully fashioned, fully formed. It'll be made. Now, it's unclear exactly what Rashi means over here. Does it mean that Hashem was the one to make the menorah? Doesn't seem like it can be. From other psukim, it seems like Moshe and Bnei Israel were the ones that had to make the vessels themselves. Otherwise, they would actually be invalid. They had to construct them. So what it probably means here is similar to the way the pasuk states it in Bahaloscha. In Bahaloscha, we have another description of the menorah. Description of lighting the actual menorah that had already been made. And then it adds one little tidbit about the way the menorah was made. This is how the menorah was made. It says later, Bamidbar and Bahaloscha. Miksha zahav. It's one big piece of gold. Ad yirecha, ad pircha, from the bottom to the top, mikshahi. One piece. Kamar'eh asher hera Hashem es Moshe kein asa es ha-menorah. Like the image that Hashem showed Moshe, that's how Moshe made this menorah. So in Baaloscha, we get this little detail that somehow an image of the menorah was shown to Moshe, and based on that image, he makes the menorah. So now if you go back to our pasuk and our Rashi, maybe te'aseh, it shall be made, Rashi says, is implying that Moshe had trouble figuring out how to make this menorah out of miksha achas, out of one big clump of gold. And when Rashi says here that HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him, you know what, throw the whole thing in the fire and it's going to come out already made, doesn't literally mean that it's going to be made miraculously by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but rather throw into a fire and a big vision is going to appear to you about what the menorah is supposed to look like. And based on that vision, you will then mold the gold and chisel the gold of the miksha achas into the menorah. If that's how we read the Rashi here, it fits very nicely with this pasuk in Ba'aloscha, explaining why kamar'eh asher Hashem es Moshe, why Hashem showed him an image at all. Because as Rashi says, maybe Moshe was miskasheba. He had difficulty imagining it, and therefore Hashem showed him the image. Based on that image, Hashem made the menorah. So this helps us. The Rashi here is a little hard to understand because it seems like God made the menorah. The pasuk in Ba'aloscha is a little hard to understand because why was there a mareh? Why was there ever a vision of what the menorah was supposed to look like? And our pasuk is difficult because it says passively, te'aseh, it shall be made. When you take all three together, you can construct this picture in your mind. Don't mind the pun. Construct the picture in your mind of what might have happened, what might have transpired. It all might have started with Moshe saying, "Hey, I'm not really sure how to make this." Hashem says, "Okay, in some fashion, you're going to see a mareh, a vision, either by throwing it into the fire or through prophetic vision. Whatever's going to happen, I'm going to show you an image out of fire, an image in your dreams. Somehow I'm going to show you an image of the menorah, and then that's how it shall be made. Te'aseh. You should make it that way, but it says it shall be made like the image, and that's the image that's spoken about here in Parshas Ba'aloscha. That's how we sort out all of these psukim and all of the pieces together, which I think is itself important to understand how all three pieces fit, and how with all of them together we get a picture of what happened. But what I want to leave you with is a thought, which I don't have an answer to, but I want you to perhaps think about. There's a few of these instances in the Torah where Moshe had trouble imagining what Hashem was talking about. We saw two of them just in our Rashis, if you remember. We talked about Kiddush HaChodesh. We talked about how when Moshe is given the first mitzvah to the Jewish people of sanctifying the new month, how Moshe says, the Rashi over there says, that Moshe didn't know how the moon was supposed to look when they were supposed to sanctify it. So Hashem says, Kazeh Ra'eh V'Kadesh. Like this is how it should be. Machzis HaShekel, same thing. Wasn't sure what it was supposed to look like. Hashem shows them a matbea shel eish, a coin made of fire. So those are two instances. Now we have another instance here in our parsha of the menorah. Moshe didn't know what it's supposed to look like. Hashem showed him an image. So what distinguishes all these cases? What ties all these cases together? Why did Moshe have trouble in some instances and not in others? You could go through every one and say, well, there was something particularly difficult, a detail that was hard to understand. That might be. Maybe these were just harder vessels to construct than any other, but I have a hard time believing that. I would imagine that all these vessels were equally difficult and all the mitzvahs were equally difficult, and that Moshe, through his incredible wisdom and incredible prophecy, was quite well versed to be able to understand everything Hashem was telling him. So when all these Chazals and Rashi say, well, he didn't know what it looked like, so Hashem showed him an image, it must be speaking to some other point. I want you to think about that, what point it might be speaking to about Moshe's difficulty and Hashem showing an image, and why it specifically relates to these examples that we've been seeing in our Parshios. I don't know if we can actually find an answer, but it's something interesting at least to think about. Thank you all so much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Have a good one.
Good day.
Take care.